So we'll begin right here, and we're really going to focus in on making this transition, and into the from the fourth to the fifth dimension, of course. But what we must understand, and what we must keep in focus and be governed by, is the big picture of what went on relative to our emanating into the physical or material or earth realm. And now, see, we know that that was a deliberately uh, aborted process, and a
Right.
deliberately flawed process that would cause a fall, that would cause a denigration, that would cause a devolution. This idea of the evolution of man is entirely false. Is entirely false. When we look at the broad spectrum or the broad scope of history uh, within the physical realms, we bypassed a critical first step in the emanation process on purpose in order to create a flawed existence. And when I'm talking about a flawed existence, I'm talking about everything that we would experience on the earth realm or within the earth realm would be flawed. And it would be a continuous uh, decomposition and degenerative and disintegration of the divinity into, and a fall into humanity, a fall into humanity or a human form. And when we would have reached the depths of that fall, the completeness of that fall, then and only then will the ascension process, the moving back toward divinity, would that begin. And our perceptions all through this process were altered. They fail as well. Our thoughts fail, and our existence, our being failed. Where we were divine beings, we became human beings. And we thought, family, that being human was the highest expression of the creation, when it was actually the lowest, and that which would fall, and the fall would affect everything. So our divine knowledge,
Hard to believe, huh?
yes, our divine knowledge that was near perfect, but not quite perfect when we first emanated in, our divine knowledge, our divine perception, our divine thought, our divine mental capabilities would gradually fall as well. And we attempted to hold on to some of these things and preserve some aspects of those things. And one attempt, and we're going to use that as the starting point, like we did the other day. One of those attempts, um, those attempts, Nasik, were reflected in what was called folk religion, folk traditions, folk rituals, folk,
Uh-huh.
folk beliefs, folk medicine, folk science, all of that. That was an attempt to hold on uh, to and preserve some of this knowledge as it relates to the indigenous original people. At some point, we knew that even we would not be able to hold on to those things relative to our traditions, especially to those that emanated into the West. So what we did was that we made the aberrant man, whom we created, to be a custodian of that hidden knowledge, and it was safe to do because they would not be able to unlock the power within themselves, being aberrant, by and large, that they would not be able to unlock the power within themselves to continue to dominate over us. All they could do was manipulate us and lock us down mentally, into a certain perception, into a certain uh, mental state, into a certain thought system. So one of the ways that we attempted to hold on to this, uh, via folk religion, was this obia, what was called in general obia. All right. And we said yesterday to focus on the word ob, and ab. All right. Those are going to be very important. If you're taking notes, write it down. Ob and ab. Obeah or Obia is a folk religion or folk magic found among those of African descent in the West Indies. It is derived from West Africa Igbo sources and has, listen, a close North American parallel in what in what in what's falsely called African American conjure or hoodoo. It's called
Yeah.
conjuring. Now, as we sit and talk about this, even in our current mindset or our current mental state, our current perception, when we hear of folk religion and folk magic and terms like voodoo or hoodoo, or even some people are familiar with the term obia, we start kind of shaking in our shoes a little bit. Now, see, we start to get a little bit worried and concerned because these things during the fall have been denigrated. They've been demonized. They've been put under the category of Satanism and demonology and witchcraft and, evil doing. All right?
That is to protect, our access to it. So as long as we saw it being negative, it was like a protection, a manipulation to prevent you from going in that direction. So you
Absolutely.
would never access it.
So that
Hmm.
so that we could complete this process of denigration, of decomposition. This was a alchemical process, and it is brilliant. It is brilliant once you are able to actually perceive of it and to comprehend it in its fullness. So again, like Nasik said, that these things were outlawed purposely and to keep us from accessing it, to keep us from holding our place in this process of denigration, in this process of declination, in this process of decomposition. A wanga,
Keep us in a continual process of degradation,
absolutely, absolutely, because that was the whole
And
purpose. That was the whole purpose of them.
yeah,
A wanga, sometimes spelled Oanga or Wanger, is a magical charm packet found in the folk magic practices of Haiti. See, all of this, Nasik, has been reduced again, to what we would term superstition and mumbo jumbo. But this, as we'll see, is the actual science. And as such, it is,
Eitai,
yes,
this is one of the major family. This is one of the major things that led all of the nations that was involved in the further denigration of Haiti. This is why Haiti,
yes,
the
yes,
so-called hurricane and all that happened. All that was done to them simply because of exactly what he's talking about right now.
absolutely,
That's what that was all about.
right. And they continue to try to keep Haiti under Nasi,
Yeah,
with the CERN program and the earthquake. They have not even fully recovered from that last
right,
devastating earthquake that happened
right.
in within the country, and it's kind of been pushed, to the back pages, or completely out of the news at all. But they were
Yes,
they were able, when you look at that culture, the culture to still have that inculcated within the culture,
right.
and that is a major center for this type of magic practice, this type of divinity, divining. That's why they call it divining, because it is related to our divinity, our divinity. So
Yeah,
the other part of this is the Wanga, sometimes spelled differently, is a magical charm packet found in the folk magic practices of Haiti. And as such, it is connected to the West African religion of Vodun. So we get the word voodoo from the word Vodun, which in turn derives from the Fon people of what is now Benin. So Nasik brought this up a couple of days ago, a couple of sessions ago, where he talked about this inversion process that took place, uh, where things Nasik were turned over, or overturned.
right.
That which represented our power, when we first emanated in, that which represented our divine power, as it decreased, was at one point demonized and satanized and made to be evil. All right. And again, to keep us from accessing it, to prevent us from accessing it, because this fall had to be complete. It had to be complete. So we're going to address uh, this prophetic inversion process that resulted from the fall. And we're going to use, as we did yesterday, we didn't record it, but we were just practicing. It was just a dry rehearsal for this today. We're going to use Ezekiel, the 21st chapter, verses 25 through 32, as our starting point and our template, because it really speaks to this inversion process uh, in very specific terms. And it's going to, again, connect.
Eitai, may I make a point here?
Yes, yes,
Now, this is why, family, we as a people have gotten ourselves trapped in what they call the King James Version.
yes,
Eitai made a point a few sessions back about the king, so, scripturally, we wanted to have a king like the nation. And so the King James Version is actually the inversion of this knowledge, you understand, so that we would what? See the king as the external king, and we would what? Desire that Bible, because it was supposed to be verified and solidified and made, accessible to us by the King,
Perfect.
King's Version, So this King James Version, that inversion is all wrapped in those scientific, social perceptions of things that we had gotten ourselves trapped in. We don't want no Bible but the King James Version.
Right. Perfect explanation on that. And, we're going to address this subject of the king or the prince now. What rules over us? What rules over us in this inverted process, in this fall? What rules over us? And that's an excellent point, Nasi. Inversion, the definition is a reversal of position. And we know this as being, uh, as a statement, the head has become the tail. All right.
Right.
That's how the King James Version, that's how the Bible talks about inversion, the head becoming the tail, the first becoming the last.
Right.
All right. The
Right.
first becoming the last. And this is the just encapsulates our history and this process of inversion resulting from the fall. We've changed positions. We've come from high to low, from being exalted, Nasi, for our powers, for our divinity, to being abased, And our existence, our very being, has followed, every aspect of our being has followed this
Yeah.
descent, this declination, this decomposition. So we must understand it's just not in one area. It is the totality of our being and our existence within the earth realms. Totally
Yeah.
fallen. We're at this point where it's time to get up, time to reverse the inversion. All right.
Yeah.
So inversion means a reversal of position, uh, a reversal of order, a reversal of form, a reversal of relationship. That's pretty holistic. Position, order, form, relationship. It all reversed. Invert means to put upside down or in opposite position, order, or arrangement. This is what our existence has typified. This is what we've manifested, a totally upside down position.
It's
In
just this vertical position that we're in, huh?
that's absolutely correct. And that was all mental. Now see, that was all a mental arrangement. That was all arrangement,
Yeah. Yeah.
an inversion
Yes.
of perception, an inversion of thought.
Yeah.
So we must understand this. Ezekiel 21:25 through 32. And thou profane, wicked prince of Israel. Now, you can say prince or king, all right? In other words, it doesn't matter. It is a ruler. What is ruling over you, all right?
Yes.
And we're going to prove that that is the ego or the super and or the super ego. That is the wicked prince of Israel. This is all allegorical now. It's all allegorical. We have to make the allegory make sense, and we have to be able to
Yeah.
comprehend it clearly. So, like Nasi said, this King James version was coded for a certain particular reason at a certain particular time. And Nasi, it was coded, and the words again were hidden. They were made to be obscure until the time of the rise. And then
Right.
the book that was sealed would be what? Opened up. and understanding would be,
Right.
understanding would increase. This is the precise process that we are currently going through right now.
Okay.
So the profane and wicked prince of Israel is actually the ego and superego. We're going to define that uh, uh, and put a sharper point on this ego and superego. This is actually Adam and the God of the Bible. Adam being the ego, and in the narrative, and the superego, the super Adam, being the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible. All right? Whose day is come. This perception of God over man. That day has come. It's time now, see, for this vertical integration that was shown in the Genesis narrative of God cursing what? Adam, putting him over the feminine, putting the feminine over the serpent, which represents the id, or this divine energy. The id, the serpent, the divine energy, the divine knowledge, the divine
Mm-hmm.
being the serpent. All right. That was the inversion process. We went over that
Yeah.
a couple of lessons ago, but we're repeating it. And Ezekiel is saying that the day of that vertical integration, that hierarchical relationship, its day has come when iniquity shall have an end. Iniquity, now see, was created by the very nature in which the very flawed nature or iniquitous nature that we integrated into here purposely.
Yeah.
So everything was iniquitous. Everything represented this flawed nature. But the time for that shall have ended, shall have come to the end. Thus saith the Lord God, remove the diadem and take off the crown. All right? This
Right.
shall not be the same. The inversion process relative, Nasi, to the descent is over. So whatever ruled in the descent, its time has come. So it's not going to rule anymore. There's a new sheriff in town.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Exalt him that is low. So what was made low? The id, the subconscious, the science of our divinity that was reflected during the fall in these folk religions, this folk magic, this hoodoo voodoo conjuring that was outlawed, now see, for a very specific reason. Now, again, I'm going to say this. We are not trying to revive anything that went on formerly. What we're trying to do is to connect with that divinity and arouse that divinity and become those divine beings, or that divine being that we were prior to emanation within the physical realms. So we're not trying to revive hoodoo, voodoo, none of that. These might be touchstones for us to learn from, but we're going beyond that now. See, those things develop as a way, simply as a way of trying to hold on and preserve this knowledge.
Right.
And those are connection points for us. And they're viable connection points. Exalt him that is low. That is the id, or the subconscious. This is Nasi, um, parallel to, raising the serpent up, is parallel to what went on in the wilderness with Moses, with the brazen serpent, where the people were suffering, right? and he was told to
Yeah.
raise this brazen serpent up. And those that looked at the serpent or began to what? Connect again with the subconscious, they lived. They weren't destroyed, they lived. Because the serpent, that which crawls in the dust, right, was exalted, and they lived.
Yeah.
And abase him that is high. That is the ego or the superego that gained what? So supremacy during the descent, during the fall. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, a familiar term to us, with us, is this, or familiar verse: I will overturn, overturn, overturn it, and it shall be no more. Until when? Until he come whose right it is. Now we know that that is the word Shiloh in Hebrew, and I will give it
Right.
him. So during our fallen mental state, we have forgotten, first and foremost, that all of this was an allegory. Now, see,
Right. Right.
so we
Okay.
began looking for a human, flesh and blood person to fulfill this. And this is how it is interpreted throughout all religions, or most of the religions, and especially the major religions: Judaism, Christianity, Hebrewism, and Islam. That they are looking for this, this flesh and blood person. In the Judeo-Hebraic tradition, that is the Mashiach, the Messiah. But we're going to find out that this is not a person at all. You will have no doubt about that after today's class. So, this is Shiloh, he whose right it is, that which belongs to him. And it is also defined as being tranquility. This word Shiloh is related phonetically to the word shalom, nasik, or wholeness,
Yes. Yes.
oneness. This is the idea, the holistic idea. And the holistic idea, family, anytime you hear the holistic idea, you know that whatever is being referred to holistically is in you. Anything else would be a dualism if you're taking it externally. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So this tranquility cannot, this Shiloh cannot be another person external to you. It would have to be something that is achieved or activated within you. And we're going to find out exactly what that is. Shiloh, from H7951, tranquil, Shiloh, an epithet of the Messiah. There you go. That's where they externalized it, right there. Now, see,
Yep.
in the King James,
Yep.
King James.
Yep.
However, it's related to the word shalah. That's H 7951. Shalah or shalab. It's a primitive root. It means to be tranquil, secure, successful, happy, prosperous, safe, to be at rest. Again, that is related to shalom, and it is also related to Shabbat, to cease, to be at rest, to be at ease, correct?
Yeah.
All right, all of these things are related. Now we're going to skip down and connect this up. We covered this a little bit yesterday, but we're going to connect this up so that we don't get too distracted from this. We're going to connect this up to an inward aspect of us. And this is going to be very specific. All right? Very specific. We're going to do this a little bit out of order. In Numbers 1 and 2, it shows us, Numbers, the first chapter, it shows us, Nasik, an aspect or a phase of us being locked into the simulated matrix. And we know that that it corresponds to how you create a virtual world in a computer system. And it is based on numbers, a series of numbers, symbols, phrases, sentences. It's a computer language that locks you in, correct? Or that creates that virtual world. And if you want to get into that virtual or simulated world, you have to have the proper language program in order to get in. So they symbolize that in allegory in the book of Numbers, the first chapter, second verse. Take ye the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel after their families, by the house of their fathers, not their mothers, by the house of their fathers, with the number of their names, every male, not female, by their polls. You're going to understand, I see, why they did this very quickly, why they separated males from females. This is duality. This is giving us the specific science, and we're going to understand that. This word polls is a key. It is a very key word when they use every man by their polls. That word polls is the word Googleeth. All right? And it is translated in the King James as pole, but it means very specifically the head, the skull. And it's talking about, it's telling us how this program got into our heads. This idea of a Messiah, Mashiach, whatever you want to call it, that's in our heads. It's a hard thing to get over. This idea, this concept of a God or a supreme being or the Most High or a divinity, some type of divinity in heaven that is external to us, that is in our heads. Now, see, that is a deep program. It's very difficult to overcome.
Absolutely.
And everything that we hear is translated into that language, into a language that perceives something greater than ourselves, outside of ourselves. Now, we can deny that as much as we want to, but that is something that the vast majority of us, if not all of us, struggle with from one, to one degree or the other. This idea of a God. I mean, we've been programmed. That's what the King James Bible did. Every time we read of it, we can't go a paragraph without hearing the Lord God. And that triggers something, that program inside of us. Do y'all hear me?
Yeah.
So, we talked about the other day, as a man thinketh, so is he. So if this program is ruling our thoughts and continues to rule our perception, it is going to continue to lock us down into this virtual reality, into this false simulated matrix. So we're gonna search this thing out now. See, this become very specific. So Google that means refers to the head or the skull. Google that. The skull as being round, by implication, a head in enumeration of persons. It's like when we say take a head count. All right? Take a head count. It's referring to the head that is on everyone else. Head, every man, skull. And we take a look at the skull containing the brain. Now, we've gone over Romans 6 and 11 before, and this is going to be the key, because this whole process, now see, of redemption, this whole process of resurrection, this whole process of the fall, this whole process of descension, the whole process of ascension has taken place in the head, no place else.
Yeah.
It's taken place in the head. Now, there were corresponding thoughts to this change in perception, and then corresponding actions, which, when recorded, is the corresponding history of the descent. But it begins, family, and ends in your skull, in your head.
Eitai, can I say this?
Yes, sir.
My wife and I were watching the TV series, the new TV series that came out last night, or not last night, but a couple nights ago, the 22nd. Luke Cage. During this, we watched the series last night. And during that series, a lot of the brothers were decapitated.
Yes.
And
yes.
Now we're talking about the heads this morning. So
yes,
I want you to allude to that, if you will.
We're going to get to that later, not Amari, but you're right on it. Zimra, did you hear that? The television show.
Yes.
Yeah, that did we talk about that this morning?
Yes.
Specifically, these television shows that now see this, the subconscious reality now is bleeding into the conscious aware world, and television shows, movies are beginning to teach us. We're going to see this when we circle back to our decoding of the Black Panther, that this is a point in our consciousness development where everything is a teachable moment. Zimmer and we just had this experience last night to today, which led to this class, and we discussed it this morning. Now here Amaria is talking about the exact same thing. We are doing this.
So, Eitai,
yes.
What was that happened last night, Amari? I missed what he said. He said something about a program he was watching, and what happened? I missed that.
Looking at a series, called Luke Cage, which is really talking about the activated. That's another comic book series that has been turned into a.
You're from the Avengers. It's from the Avengers, right?
Yeah, that is talking about a melanated individual that has activated his powers. But Amari, his role has been inverted. His real role has been inverted because he is seeking to serve humanity and preserve that and mankind. We're going to see that is a reversal, that is an inversion mentally. I'm going to speak to it.
In other words, what they're doing from what I'm hearing y'all say, what is taking place as the activation began to become more obvious from melanated people. They recognized this was going to take place at a certain time. They then began to what? Create the role as to how the activation is to be used. That's what I'm hearing y'all say.
Now, see, I can't even give them that much credit. I'll say what I said in the beginning. The ancestors are behind this. The ancestors are behind
Absolutely.
this. They're the only ones.
Okay.
See, they're the only ones that know the timing of this activation. So they are they are creating these movies, these television shows, these comics, causing them to come into the forefront.
Okay, that's good. That's
it. That's it. Yes.
Eitai, they said they called upon the ancestors, and they also talked about black magic.
That's right.
And they so they had it all in that episode, in the new episodes of Luke Cage.
Abigail, me and Zimra, we were just talking about that this morning. That's the first thing that we talked about. Not specifically Luke Cage, but another series, number of series that we look at that are speaking this to us at this point. And we know our ancestors are behind it.
I really guess that's what I really meant. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
That's right. So yeah, they know the timing, and so they're making this stuff available in the for us in the simulated reality and to correspond to the organic reality and vice versa. So Romans 6:11 gives us a tremendous key, and we talked about this before, maybe about a week or so ago. It says, likewise, reckon ye yourselves to be dead, indeed unto sin, but alive unto God through Jesus Christ our Lord. This is not talking about something religious. This is talking about something mental, something that we have to do with our perception, something that we have to do with our thoughts. We have to reckon ourselves to be dead. Reckon ourselves to be dead. This happens mentally. It happens mentally. It happens in the head. It happens in the skull. All right? It happens specifically in the brain. I'm going to show you. Nasik, you said that we had to make this plain. I'm going to take a finger and put on this right on the area of the brain where this must occur. And y'all gonna really see this. Luke, now, Amaria said they looked at Luke Cage last night. We got to decode that name at some point. Luke Cage. All right. Luke is going to refer to Lucifer. Lucifer. All right. Is going to refer to Lucifer, which we've been conditioned to perceive Nasi as evil, as the devil.
Yeah.
But Lucifer is just another form of Jesus Christ. It's him in his activated form. The King James Version refers to both of them as the morning star, do they not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on now. Luke, Dr. Luke Cage. They did not name him that character that for no reason. We're gonna get into that a little bit later, Amaria. We'll refer to it at this class, but it's all the same language. Luke 23:33. And when someone say something.
That was just me. I was just agreeing. Okay.
Luke 23:33. And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary. Write down the word Calvary. There they crucified him. And the malefactors, that is the evildoers, on the right hand and the other on the left. Y'all see a right hand and a left hand here, a right side of the brain and a left side of the brain.
Yeah.
And the genius part of the brain that joins them together, which is Christ crucified in the middle, is your genius. That is your genius that joins, that makes the two one. That is holism. Calvary is not the word Calvary, Nasik, like that. It's the word cranion, cranion, which means a skull. We get the word cranium from that word. Now here we are singing about Calvary in the church and talking and preachers preaching about Calvary, Calvary, and they ain't doing nothing but talking about their brain, their skull. This is an allegory. We forgot that this was all an allegory. And then we take these holy journeys to Israel to go to see the place, whether we're a Muslim or whether we're a Christian or a Catholic or a Hebrew, to see the place where Jesus was crucified. And you walking around with it on top of your neck all the time. You ain't got to spend no money to understand where Jesus was crucified. He was crucified in your head. He was born in your head. And he died in your head, and he must be raised in your head, in your brain. It must be a mental process. Cranion. It is a diminutive of the base word, which is G2768. This is brilliant how they hid this now, see, even in the Greek language. The cranium is merely the skull of a human being. And in the Passion play, the crucifixion of Christ, our ancestors were just telling us that this process of you reckoning yourselves to be dead and killing the ego has to take place in the brain, has to take place mentally. And it says that cranium means skull. All right, the definition. This is the etymology. It's the skull, the upper part of the head, the upper part. We're going to talk about this. They are laying out the whole structure of your brain here. You don't see it yet, but you will. It is related to the word kara, or the word kras, or karas, meaning the head. It is related to a root, K-E-R, which is a prefix, and it means horn. Horn, you devils. It means horn, you demons, you devils. It's a part of your brain. We're gonna talk about the horns on your head, Lucifer. These horns on your head, actually in your head. Lucifer, strictly the brain box. The bony case which encloses the brain. Now we go to this root word or base word of cranium, and it is the word keras. Keras. G2768. Keras from kar, means the hair of the head or a horn or horns. Follow me now. Since animals, especially bulls, and we've all seen the devil represented with the bull's horns on his head. Are you all with me? Especially bulls defend themselves with their horns. The horn with the Hebrews and other nations is a symbol of your strength and courage. Now, see, we're gonna get to something that that we've already studied and that we've already focused on and used as and used as such as a variety of phrases. A mighty and valiant helper. A mighty and valiant helper. Now, this relates to, now remember, we still on the males. We still on the men. But who was their valiant helpmeet supposed to be? The feminine aspect.
The woman.
The feminine aspect that was what? Inverted and demoted beneath the man. They laid this out now, see.
Yeah, I see it.
And then they say the author of deliverance, and it's made in reference of the Messiah. We're going to show you exactly where the Messiah is located on you, the Mashiach. A projecting extremity in the shape like a horn, a point apex as of an altar. An altar. The altar is not external. The altar is inside of you, as well as the temples. Where are your temples at? Point to your temples. Is that not in your skull?
Yeah, right on your head. Yeah,
don't you
that
have
depression on the side of your skull, right above your eyes?
Don't you have one on the right hand and the other on the left?
Absolutely.
Come
They're
on,
not separated.
This is talking about your body. This is why our ancestors put on all of the temples. Know thyself. Know thyself.
Ooh. This is so awesome. All the biology I took of the human body, it's like this just puts it all together in real perspective.
You're going to love it.
Cosmic consciousness.
Absolutely. Now here we go. Lying in the middle of the brain. Christ was crucified where? In the middle. With the what? The two evildoers, the two other evildoers and malefactors on the outside. Lying in the middle of the brain is the part of the temporal lobe. Why do they call it temporal? Because it's related to the temples. One to the left, the other to the right. Are you all with me? Called the Ammon's horn, or Amun's, or Aman's horn. Amen? Amen, church? The Ammon's horn.
Amun.
Amen.
When you were seeking safety in the Old Testament, you could run to the temple and grab onto the horns of the altar. And you could rest. You could find what? Refuge there. This is all internal, family. The Ammon's horn, or the Amun's, or the Aman's horn, or Nasi, the hippocampus.
You're right. The hippocampus. Yeah, that's the memory element there, right?
There you go. That is why they just dealing with the males, because it's related to Zekar, a memorial.
Yeah.
This aspect
Right.
of remembering the
This
hippocampus.
is outstanding.
In neuroanatomy, Amon's horn is a metaphor that relates, look, to the gods and the brain. That's your divinity. That's your divinity. That's your divine power, family. Now, see, we located it, but how many months ago, now see, was this idea of the hippocampus? How many years ago? And we spent months
Yeah,
studying that.
yeah, absolutely, right.
That was back in
Right.
2009, 2007,
2010, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That was the ancestors now. We see.
Now,
Go ahead.
Eitai.
Yes.
But see, what we had it wrong
Right.
when we said the mind, and because you see, the mind wasn't no physical place that you could, and they knew this. This is why they created the concept of a mind.
That's
to
right.
what? Knowing it all the time, they were talking about the brain.
That's
but
correct.
we bought the mind and not, we disconnected the mind from the brain. So we was conceptualizing everything and what they call a mind, but it was all taking place in our head.
That's correct. And we even dressed it up. Now, see, talking about the God mind and the Yah mind.
Right, there you go.
And
there
the
you
mind,
go. Right.
mind of God and the mind of Christ and stuff. This is all.
Yes.
This is all inversion. This is all distraction. This is all part of the what? Fall.
Yeah.
Ammon's horn, and remember, Ammon is related to the Ammonites. We're going to talk about that. The Ammonites in the Bible. We're going to get into that much later. But Ammon's horn is the hidden creator. The hidden creator that is sleep, hidden, innate, inactive within you. The king of the gods, king of kings, Lord of lords. Isn't that what we want to put on a Messiah that was external to us?
Yes, yes. Yes, yes.
And the Lord of the thrones of the world. This is the control, Nasik, above the gene. This is the control of the simulated world. It's in you.
Yeah.
Amun is the hidden one, Lord of the visible and invisible worlds. He was the mysterious soul of the universe. The mysterious soul of the universe, which reveals itself in light. Well, what does that mean? It reveals itself in this knowledge that our ancestors have given us. Ain't no way we could have seen this, now see,
No, no.
unless it was revealed to us. So Ammon's horn is known as the hippocampus. And we see these horns represented here with the lavender, in the lavender, where it's report that that's the hippocampus, these dual horns here. And like Nasik said, it's the seat of the memory. It is accessible, Nasik, of course, holistically in both male and female.
Right, yeah.
But it's more easily accessible for the men. This is why the men were singled out, and the son and the by the house of their fathers, because our ancestors knew that we were going to be what? Dualistic in every sense. Men from Venus, women from Mars. The brothers don't do this, the sisters don't do that. We knew we was going to be divided in this process. So this is a how-to for both males and females, but primarily the brothers. All right? Because it was never supposed to be no female Messiah, was it?
No. Always a male Messiah.
Always a male Messiah. Female was unthinkable. Why? Because of the vertically integrated perception. We bringing back balance to this, but they're giving us specifically, brothers, what we have to do, what we can do more easily. Amon's horns, all right? The hippocampus, like Nasi said, referring to memory, or zakar, all right? Listen, the god Amun, or Aman, in ancient times was usually depicted as a ram with curved horns, and that is the he-goat family before the flock. Are you all with me?
Yeah.
Because that's the position I see. That's our starting position in the vertically integrated simulated reality. That is the position that we would be in the fall, when the decomposition would have been complete. Does it make sense? And so this is our starting point. But it's for males and females. I'm not talking about this in any type of social, cultural way, but I'm just giving credence to the point of where we are, what the separation, what the fall has done to us. A man with a ram's head. A man with a ram's head. Now, this is the Baphomet as well. Or a man with two upright plumes or feathers as a headpiece. We've already dealt with that to a certain extent, where we talked about Shem or shame in the Egyptian allegory. The name Corno Ammonis, Ammon's horn, or the hippocampus, is a major component in the brains of humans, where we find the clues, in the secret mysteries. This is the place where it's located. Where attention goes, family, energy flows. Activate your hippocampus, because it's going to do what? It's the place where we find the clues in the secret mysteries that lie deep within each one of us. Have we pointed the finger to it, Nasi?
Yes, yes.
Listen, the foremost functional distinction in the human brain is probably its division into two hemispheres. That's the foremost functional distinction, is its division into the two hemispheres. Walk with me now. The left and the right hemisphere.
Right and left hemisphere.
Right. These are the two malefactors, the two evildoers that were crucified with Christ, who was in the middle. The left and the right hemisphere. each with each with functional specializations. So we know that the right hemisphere is creativity, intuition, that part of the brain. The left hemisphere is the logical, that calculates and rationalizes and reasons. With the two functional specializations, the corpus callosum, that is the middle part, separates the two hemispheres. So the corpus callosum represents what? Jesus. Separates the two hemispheres and connects similar parts in each hemisphere to what? Coordinate processing. That is that the center portion rules over the left and the right brain. But if the center portion, family, is ruled over by the ego, by the what? Now see, profane king, the perception that you're human, the thought that you're human is going to turn your brain profane, your thoughts profane, your perceptions profane. So you got to crucify that. You got to kill that. You have to what? Depose the wicked and evil king, the prince. Take his crown off. Take the diadem off his head. Abase, lift up what was a base, exalt what was a base, and abase that which was made low. That which was made low, Nasik, was our divinity. And our divine science. Now here it is. Typically, women have more connections, listen, between the hemispheres than the man. Typically, women have more connections between the two hemispheres than man. But the King James Version inverted this.
Yeah, that's it.
They inverted this, family, especially in the areas affecting verbal communication. They gonna bring forth, family, that double-edged sword from their mouth first. But this is where we must begin first to develop that. Are y'all hearing me, brothers?
Yeah.
The women have what? More connections. This is why ISIS. See, it was wrong, Nasik, then to make well, it's not necessarily wrong. We don't want to use that language, but we now understand why we would never think of a woman being the Messiah, because she was too likely a candidate. And this is why we see the women in Jamaica and Haiti still retaining that power, these obeah powers,
right.
these powers of the tongue. And they were the ones whose tongues were cut out. They were the ones who had the iron muzzle around their mouths, by and large. Are y'all with me? This is why the representation is of the feminine magician card, what? Armed with both weapons. And the male having his laying down on the table, pointing to it. Because the woman has what? More connections than him, and will raise that sword quicker and faster. And y'all know, like even in the regular language, that if you, I mean, you, by and large, you're not gonna out talk no woman.
Yeah.
You're not gonna do that. Not even a little girl. I found myself raising little girls Look, now see, I tell you, I gotta give up.
Right,
I
right,
can't
right.
compete with some of that stuff.
We clear, we clear.
I'm trying to teach my oldest. This was life changing to me. I'm trying to teach my oldest daughter. She had to be 8 or 9 years old at the time, now see. And I'm trying to teach her some spiritual stuff that connects with how you're supposed to behave. And I'm using, all the right words and the terms and the phrases, on her level and interpreting.
Yeah.
And she just got this look on her face. And I said, did you understand everything that, your Abba said? And she said, yeah, I understand it, but it don't happen that way in my world.
Yeah, I'm clear.
And I had to surrender at that point. I had to give up at that. What else can I say?
Yeah. Yeah.
She just took that sword and cut me off at the ankles.
Yeah, buddy.
So this is why we see the feminine representation on the left of the magician card, referring to our divine power. The female is already standing up with the scepter in her hand and the sword.
Right.
Why? Because she has more of those connections from the center portion of the brain to the right and the left hemisphere. And the male representation has the sword there, but has not quite picked it up yet. Is pointing to it. It's here. So our ancestors were wise in using the male figure and saying, now see, this is something that you have to focus on first, and to create these neurological connections by focusing your
Right.
attention on it first. Now we can look at it from a politically correct standpoint, but it's not necessarily politically incorrect, but it is correct from an energetic standpoint. And from what? A neuroanatomical standpoint. And from a neurological standpoint. We have to know ourselves. We have to know ourselves. So this is very specific, family. We can't ignore this. We can't ignore this. We know what we have to focus on. Where energy, where attention goes and intention goes, and it should be, especially for the brothers, focusing in on that hippocampus. You see it right here, that area of your brain. All you got to do is close your eyes and mentally focus on that point. Send light to it. Send healing to it. Send these sigils. Make your sigils include the hippocampus. I am empowering my hippocampus, or I am empowering Amon's horn. Reduce that to a sigil and practice your rituals if that's what you need to do. Some of us can just focus in on that or do both. Focus in and meditate. Send energy. Create those connections. Are you all with me?
Yeah.
Is this specific, not see? We can't ignore this, family. We can't ignore this.
Yeah.
Typically,
No. On the money.
yes, typically women have more connection between the two hemispheres than men, especially in the area affecting verbal communication. You know, and again, this is why Isis, the divine feminine, was referred to what? As the, let me see exactly what it says. She was referred to, Isis was considered more powerful than 1,000 soldiers, and the clever tongued one whose speech never fails. Well, why was it a woman? Because she has more connection. She has more connection in that center part of the brain and is more skilled verbally. But, and this is why in the scriptures, in the King James, to your point again, Nasi, where in the Pauline in the letters from Paul, he said women should remain silent.
Right.
Watch this. I think it says something like, "Don't suffer a women to speak."
Right. It does.
Let's see. Let your women keep silent in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the law. This goes to our point, our broader point, that we had to what? Now see, descend. So women were, you know, in our institutions and in all of our spiritual institutions, by and large, are not given a voice, that they are kept what? Under obedience.
That's correct.
Again, in 1 Corinthians 14, and if they learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for the women to speak in the church.
That
Y'all got to see that.
is. Also in the book of Numbers, and I was just saying in the book of Numbers, you know, it is forbidden for a woman to, you know, pray or make a decision
Right.
if she have a head. If she dies, she have to go to her father. In other words, she can't make no decision. So you're absolutely right. This is exactly right.
This is exactly what we're seeing in the overall narrative. And Nasi, it completely parallels with our historic experience. And it lets us know exactly where we are.
Yes, it does.
Now, in John 19, we're going to take a quick look at this because we're going to get more into understanding the anatomy of the brain. And more importantly, those that relate to our divinity. Those that relate to our divinity. And what you all are going to find out that, now see, when we were talking about the hippocampus, we was talking about how that most humans don't use more than 10 to 12% of their brain capacity.
Right.
You remember that?
Absolutely right.
So we have to awaken and activate those other portions. We're going to know exactly how to do that. We are going to know exactly how to do that. I showed Zimra this morning that I've begun to create these sigils that directly correspond to the ancient names of those 10 hidden Sephiroth, those 10 Kalippo. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that as well. But we're going to complete this little anatomy lesson that we've taken by decoding these scriptures relative to the crucifixion. And from thenceforth, Pilate sought to release him. that is Jesus. But the Jews cried out, saying, If thou let this man go, thou art not Caesar's friend. Whosoever maketh himself a king speaketh against Caesar. Now that is really deep, because when we understand that exchange, yes.
What verse is that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What verse is that?
John 19, verses 12 through 18. That is verse 12. That is verse 12. Excuse me. We're going to circle back to these scriptures because there's so much hidden in these that is related to neuroanatomy. But we're going to point out one specific thing. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus forth. Now listen, and sat down in the judgment seat. In the judgment seat. This judgment seat is a place that's in you. A place that is called the pavement. A place that is called the pavement. But in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. Anytime you see this, this is our ancestors speaking directly to us. Just like they called it Calvary or called it the place of the skull, and then they named it in Hebrew Golgotha, as we'll see in the 17th verse. You got to pay specific attention to this. And this is an anatomy lesson. This is an anatomy lesson. I'm going to show you the pavement that they're speaking of. And the language is going to prove it out. We won't get into it now, but as I develop the notes, you're going to have it all in with the Greek words and the etymology and the Hebrew words and etymology. And it all fits together perfectly, Nasi. These, they were brilliant. That's the only, they were brilliant in their understanding of all this. It was the preparation of Passover. Now, this is linked to everything that we've been talking about with Shavuot, the rod, Shevet and Shevet rather, and the Sabbath. All of this is connected in. It is not so much a history lesson at all. It is all allegorical. It doesn't relate to history like that. And it definitely doesn't relate to anything else but our understanding of us from a neurological, energetic, and biological standpoint and perspective. Because we're going to have to be very specific in where, Nasi, we focus our attention and our energy in our meditations.
Right.
It was the preparation of the Passover. And about the 6th hour, well, what's after the 6th hour but the 7th hour? Which is related, Nasi, to the rest, to Shiloh, to completion, to the revealing of the Messiah. And he saith unto the Jews, Behold your king. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, Shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, We have no king but Caesar. We're going to find out that is very true. And until you take the throne, the simulated reality and what rules over the simulated reality is going to rule over you. And you're going to be stuck here. Then delivered he him therefore unto them to be crucified. And they took Jesus and led him away. And he, bearing his cross, went forth into the place, into a place called the place of the skull, which is the word Golgotha or Gugolet in Hebrew. We've already gone through that, where they crucified him and two other with him, on either side one, and Jesus in the midst. That's all that this is. That this place is going to take place. That this thing, you killing your ego, and thus what? Activating your id or your divinity is going to take place right here. No place else, family. Your focus and your meditation, your attention should always be to this, at least initially, to this hippocampus, to these Amon's horn. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Now let's deal with this pavement real quick, and then we're going to move back and move on as we close. This is referred to as the hypothetical correspondence between ancient Egyptian cosmology, that is the stars and the alignments of the heavens, so-called externally, and the cranial vault. The cranial vault. Now, they show this on the left as Horus or Osiris and the sun disk. You see Horus as the falcon with the sun disk over his head, and then the vault of the heavens, the vault of the sky over the sun disk. This is just referring, Nasi, to the corpus callosum that we talked about, the thalamus, which is the sun disk, and the pineal gland, which is Osiris. They were just giving you a biological breakdown, a cross section of the brain. Do you see the two figures to the right and to the left of the central representation that looks like a ladder? That ladder is the spine. The figure in there that they are looking at or paying attention to is what's called the medulla oblongata, and we're going to talk about that later. It is the spinal cord that leads up to what? The medulla oblongata, which is represented by Horus, then the pineal gland, then just the vault of the corpus, what's called the corpus callosum. So we're going to go into detail with this later, but I wanted to show you what our ancestors knew. Now, see, thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, from the very beginning.
I mean, they have laid it out so, profoundly and hid it, within the scriptures. It's just amazing.
Yes, it is. So one of the things that, see, we've been trained to think that Jesus shouldn't have been crucified, that this was the worst act and the most iniquitous act and the most evil act in history. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
But Jesus was the profane king. See, I'm showing you now, see how we've been programmed. We must see this. And even when we looked at, when the majority of people watched the Black Panther movie, when they saw Killmonger, which represented our divinity and our divine essence, destroying humanity, their
Family.
morality, that moral programming kicked in and
You
said
have an echo somewhere.
that he's evil, that he's the villain. But this is the work, now see, that we have to do. We ain't talking about going out killing nobody external of ourselves. We want to kill this wicked king. And Killmonger had the right perspective that T'Challa was going to take, and in the end, took this technology to benefit humanity, which is going to do what? Perpetuate this iniquity. Perpetuate. It ain't going to solve nothing. It's not going to heal nothing. This thing is in descent. But we've been programmed to think that humanity,
Badly programmed.
we have been programmed severely to think that humanity is something worth saving, something
That's
worth
the
improving.
morality.
Huh?
Morality. That's
That's
the
right.
more morality aspect.
That's the moral program. But the id, the subconscious, is not moral. The subconscious is not moral, and therefore, from a human perspective, is villainous, is evil, is iniquitous. But the work is to destroy everything that is human, to identify, search it out, and destroy everything that is human within us. That's the only way we're going to access the divine, family. I want to show you this because we're going to get into this and circle back to it, and get into detail and call these things up that we established beforehand. But we want to get back to, very quickly, Ezekiel, the 21st chapter, and close this thing out. And what we'll do is, we'll start here and then go back over what we discussed yesterday, and it'll make much more sense. And I will finish and complete the notes and amend these notes, get them out to you so you have something to study. So this Shiloh was supposed to depose the ego, this divine aspect of us that we've mistakenly conceived and perceived as the Messiah, an external Messiah. And thou, O son of man, prophesy and said, thus saith the Lord God, concerning the Ammonites, Ammon horn, the Ammonites, the Ammon horn, and concerning their reproach, even say thou, the sword is drawn, for the slaughter it is furbished, to consume because of the glittering. Because of the glittering. That is the word Barak. We're going to go back over that. Connect this with the election of Barack Obama. That is something that our ancestors caused to happen. It was a ritual. It was a prophetic ritual. And
Ezekiel, I mean, that was Ezekiel what, Eitai?
That's Ezekiel, I'm reading from 21 through 25. That's 25, 26, 27. I'm in the 28th verse.
Okay.
28th verse. We're going to connect this again to Barack Obama. and his election. But it's talking about the Ammonites, the Amun horn. Can y'all see this? Can y'all see how brilliant they wove this into the narrative?
Okay.
There's no way with the human mind are you going to be able to, or the human intellect, are you going to be able to find these things and to even recognize them to the point where
No,
they make sense?
absolutely not.
Whilst they see vanity unto thee, whilst they divine a lie unto thee, to bring upon the necks of them that are slain of the wicked, whose day is come, when their iniquity shall have an end. See, we could not, the reason why it was a reproach beforehand, because we weren't ready to access and activate the Ammonites, the Amun horn. Are you all with me?
Right.
So,
Okay.
in relation to the fall, it was a reproach. Don't try to activate it. It would happen when the sword was drawn and it would begin to consume because of what? Barak. Because of this ritual that the ancestors were going to orchestrate before the world. Didn't have anything to do with anything political or social or cultural. It wasn't going to have any benefit as it related to that. Looking for the wrong thing, Nasi. Looking to what? Perpetuate this false simulated matrix. Barack Obama shouldn't have done anything for no black humans. It would just perpetuate the idea of a Messiah. He did exactly what he was supposed to do and got on out the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Human thought and human perception says, oh, he was black and didn't do nothing for black people. Human thought, human perception. Shall I cause it to, the sword is drawn, shall I cause it to return to its sheath? I will judge thee in the place where thou was created. That is in your own mind.
Yeah.
He's going to take the judgment seat in what is called, what we refer to rather in the other scripture, where Pontius Pilate took the judgment seat, was Gabbatha. And this word Gob, G-A-B, or G-O-B, like O-B and A-B, Nasik is going to add to the story. It's going to talk about
I see it.
and where it takes place. And all this is taking place in your head. No other geographic location outside of yourself. You are the judge. You are the jury. You are the executioner.
No question.
I will judge thee in the place where thou was created. In your own head, in your own skull. That's where you exist. And in the land of thy nativity, I will pour out my indignation upon thee. This is the crucifixion of the humanity within you. I will blow against thee in the fire of my wrath. Why the fire? Because it completes you. You came in through the water and you were incomplete and iniquitous and evil and flawed. So we're going to go through the fire and have gone through the fire now. See those formative fires, those perfecting fires, those decompositioning and putrefying fires that reduces and condenses everything right here on earth And we have gone through that process, and we're continuing to go through that process. And as long as we remain human in our imperfected states, though the fire of his wrath is going to continue burning and to be poured out on us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deliver thee into the hand of brutish men. And we're going to talk about this in terms of what we talked about before, this Me Too movement, Nasi, that has happened, and that has affected these brutish men in every institution, even in what individuals had claimed to be what? Peace on earth, the village of peace, that these brutish men have put our children through the fire. Isn't that so?
Yeah. So.
And skillful to destroy. We're gonna revisit that now. We're gonna revisit that. Thou shalt be for fuel to the fire, you humans. Thy blood shall be in the midst of the land. Thou shalt be no more remembered, for I, the Lord, have spoken it. The former things passing away, new things springing into being. So we're going to end right here and begin by going into detail now, seek of that 21st chapter of Ezekiel and the 28th verse that you questioned me about. We're going to go again into detail about that, follow that through history, and then get to this portion, the other portions of the brain, all right, that must be activated, that must be activated, all right, and those are the 10 Calippo, the 10 Calippo, and we're going to revisit that. And I'm telling you, we're going to know specifically. I haven't gotten it yet, but I know. I told Zimra the other day, I already know it. Those particular areas that these Kalipov, these ancient names, refer to. I've already began working on the Sephiroth that are going to aid in our activation. But we want to get very specific so that we can put our attention on very specific areas within us. It reads on this wise. The Kalipoth or Kelipot is the dark side or inverse of the Sephiroth, the light side. The Sephiroth, the Sephiroth refers to your conscious intellect, your conscious awareness. That Nasi, which corresponds and relates to the simulated matrix. All right?
Absolutely right.
The Sephiroth is the ancient Hebrew system of Kabbalah in relations to what? Numbers, spheres, and areas of energy. We already showed you numbers 1 and 2, how you're locked into and programmed into what? The simulated matrix. This is what the Sephiroth do. We got to get into the dark side. We got to go dark, I see. Make this transition from light into
Absolutely.
the Klepoth.
Absolutely.
The Klepoth is a map to the spheres and energies of demons. Now we already talked about that. We're afraid of that. They've inverted this. When they say demons, they're just talking about our divine powers. The gods,
Right.
the gods in our brain that are lying sleep in our brain, and shells of the dead, ancient guardian ancestors. These shells may be embodied with life, listen, by the sorcerer who uses his or her mind, that is intent, intention, and will, to fill them, to arouse them, to evoke them. The goal of the sorcerer is to find and empower these dark spheres and tunnels within the brain. The brother that was on yesterday, I neglected to get his name, that talked about what Phil Valentine said to him.
That was Daniel.
That was
King.
Daniel. Are you on the line?
King.
Does this correspond to exactly what he was talking to you about?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Does this relate to what he was talking to you about, what you had done?
Absolutely.
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 Absolutely. You're in the right place. You're in the right place.
Dang, you know. Go ahead. I'll say something later.
Okay. We're going to open it up. We're going to close here, but we're going to open up for questions at this point. I'm going to end right here, but we are in the correct place. This is the specific information that has been provided us, Nasi, to do. We just follow it step by step. It's just simple. And we can do this. We are doing it. We are doing it. The only reason we are being exposed to this information is because it's the time to expose us to this information, and we are the people that are going to do this at this particular time. By no means the only people that are doing this, but we are approaching it from this unique perspective, and we are getting everything that we need. Everything that we need. So with that, I'm going to end it and open it up for questions and comments.
You know,